Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Growing Up with Godzilla. My name is Donny Winter, and this is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. It is 2026, and that means a new season has started. And I hope that you are ready for another year of some monstrous mayhem because we have a pretty stacked lineup. I am excited to have on someone I've been talking to for a long time, and we've been kind of tinkering around with the idea of like having them on the show. So I'm super happy that they are on the show. They will be a familiar face to you. I am excited to have on the wonderful Jonathan Portman of Collect All Monsters. Hello.
What's up, Donnie? How's it going, everybody? Pleasure to be here. It's an honor. New season, new year. Hopefully, new and bright and better things. I mean, needless to say, this year has not started that great, but look, we're here, you and I together, and we're for the community, for all of us. We're gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna go at it. We're gonna have
Yep.
fun.
Godzilla is our escape.
hmm
And I think sometimes when things are difficult, we need to tap into that escape and find a way to just experience some level of catharsis. So I couldn't have said it
100%.
any better myself. But I'm really glad to have you here, and I'm glad that you get to start out the season with me because we're
Ooh,
gonna have a fun conversation.
yes, we are.
Well, so we've not met in person quite yet.
Regrettably,
Yes,
yeah.
but I have known you like in association with Collect All Monsters, and you've been such a huge supporter of the show. So I like, and I think in our many conversations, like I just found you to be like one of the most kind and generous people. So the whole purpose of the show is to get to know everyone and kind of delve into their histories as Godzilla fans, right? And in that, I really just love to see how people entered being a Godzilla fan and things that they've gravitated to over the years, what Godzilla has done for them. So I'm going to be tapping into that throughout this episode and asking you, some questions related to that. So obviously the first question that I have for you is how were you first introduced to Godzilla all the way back from the beginning?
Wow. Okay, so this one's a really good story. I enjoy telling it. It's very special and near to me because the person who got me into all this initially was my uncle, and he David and like John and Kyle when they were younger, he went to the theater whenever he could, the matinees to see these movies. He watched them on TV whenever they would show up. And he was a huge fan, and he still is. But he got me into it when he thought I was ready for it. Now, this is the summer of 1990. I was still 5 years old. I wasn't quite 6 years old yet. I remember my dad owned some apartment complexes just north of where we lived, and I would have to go with him while he did some work around the house. And so I remember when I got back from doing that, I went over and hung out at my grandparents where my uncle was because they were really close to us in town. And so we would always go over there and hang out. So needless to say, he was a big influence on me growing up. Um, he handed me a VHS tape with a markered, with it markered on there, "Destroy All Monsters." And he said, "Watch this and let me know what you think." So I went home and popped it on, and needless to say, from the jump, my eyes just like widened. I mean, you're talking about someone who at this point was just getting into dinosaurs and monsters. I mean, the first movie I had ever seen in theaters was The Land Before Time.
Mm.
My parents
Ooh,
took me to
that's a
see
hard
that,
one
and
to
I was
see
there.
for the first
Yeah,
time.
I'm telling you, as kids, the Don Bluth movies, like this wasn't. It's not like it is now with cartoons, especially. Boy, were they teaching us hard lessons back then. And that
Yeah.
was one of them. That was one that really hit hard. I remember the neighbor, one of our neighbors, came to see it with us, and she had to leave the theater, just bawling her eyes out, like she couldn't handle it. And she was my age. She was like 4 years old. So, and that was the first theater experience I had was The Land Before Time. So I was enthralled with dinosaurs. We would go to in elementary school, we had like library time. And so I would go to the card catalog and I'd be
Mm.
searching for all the dinosaur books, and I would go and just skim through and read all the dinosaur books, as many as I could all the time. And they also had the Godzilla book from Crestwood House, right? Is that the one? I think
Oh,
this
who
one.
was that
That's
by Ian Thorne? I think that's the name. I think that was the author's
yes.
name.
He did that, and then there was like Universal Monsters, and then they did King Kong as well. But the Godzilla one, I was always kind of intrigued by. I really didn't know anything about Godzilla, but I was like, oh, a dinosaur that's like more mutated and like wackier looking. I love this. So when I got this VHS tape of Destroy All Monsters, I put it in. I watched the whole thing, commercials and all. There's just like he set record on it, and that was it. There was no like stopping for
Mm.
commercial breaks. And it's funny, for the longest time, for about 10 years until ADV released an official copy of Destroy All Monsters to us. I had never seen the opening 10 to 15 minutes of the movie because my uncle forgot to press record when the movie started.
Oh
So
no.
the movie started for me when they get on the moon base. So that was the beginning for me. I never saw Monsterland. I never saw that stuff in the beginning. So when I had that opportunity, I was really excited because I was like, my uncle was like, you're finally getting to see the first like 10, 15 minutes of this movie for the first time. But anyway, so Destroy All Monsters, I fell in love with Godzilla and all the other monsters, and I wanted to know more. And so I went back to my uncle, like a little giddy little kid. I was like, show me more. I need to see more. Like, I just need it. I remember pleading with my parents, like, can I ask my uncle to borrow that VHS tape again? Because like I would have to give it back to him, and then, he would give it to me, but I would always have to plead with him to give it to me because I wanted to watch it endlessly. So Destroy All Monsters was my first ever experience with Godzilla. And then after that, he just slowly started getting me into the more like Mothra versus Godzilla was the next one. He gave me too much to his chagrin because he wasn't into the Heisei movies as much.
Mhm.
One of the local stations had played, I think it was TBS, and at least where I grew up, played Godzilla 1985. So that was another
Ooh.
one I saw at a very young age. So I was seeing a lot of different variations of Godzilla out of order kind of when I was a kid. For me it wasn't that big of a deal because I didn't really understand the continuity. I just wanted to see the giant monsters. So
Mhm.
yeah, 6 years old or 5 years old, 1990. That was my first ever
Wow.
experience.
You were a seasoned Godzilla fan by that time, right? Like, Destroy All Monsters is a great first Godzilla movie, I think. I mean, granted,
Yeah.
I feel like there's room for people to be lost with like regarding like who Godzilla is and the legacy of that character at that point, but I just seeing all of those monsters for the first time, being the first Godzilla movie, it would have been just like on cloud nine. I would have been on cloud nine if that were my first one.
But I mean, it was definitely overwhelming, but like in a good way. Like I really didn't know what I was looking at, but I just as soon as Godzilla enters, Tokyo Bay, and I'm like, and then Mothra, Rodan, Ghidra. I was like, three-headed dragon. It is a perfect movie, kind of, to start out with early, especially for me, because, you know, the movie itself kind of is in its own timeline at that point, right?
Mhm,
19 that takes place in 99. It's years later. There's no like official connections to the previous lore like that are at least unless except for the monsters, really. There's no
mhm.
story connection, so it's like kind of a perfect way to introduce me. And then from that jumping point, it was like, now that I see all the monsters, I just want to know more about them. So it was like, okay, well, that's why you've seen Rodan. Let's watch Rodan. You've seen Mothra. Let's watch Mothra. You've seen Godzilla. Let's watch the original. Let's
Mhm.
watch Mothra versus Godzilla. One of my favorite Godzilla movies of all time.
Uh,
So, you know, we
music
can
to
get
my
into that
ears.
one later. I know we can get into that one a little later, but yeah, I mean, that is the summer I'll never forget the
Yeah.
him just handing me that tape. And I had it for years. I wish I still had it. I wish I still had those recorded VHS tapes because for the longest time, those were my gateway in. Were these recorded VHS tapes off of the local stations, unless I was going to like Suncoast Video and
Mhm.
grabbing what I could there. And let's be honest, where I grew up, it wasn't a lot, so I had to kind of find it. It was like a treasure hunt. It was really fun. It was back then. It was kind of like, you know, needle in a haystack sort of deal. So
Yeah, like, I often have this conversation, especially with newer Godzilla fans who are, like, younger millennials or Gen Z because, like, I feel like the '90s, especially that era like right after Godzilla versus Biollante and before, the Godzilla 98 film, like it was just like this space of no Godzilla. Like we just had to like kind of, seek it out because the Heisei era had
Yeah,
not been released in its entirety at that point.
true.
So we were getting like lines of figures that had kaiju that we had never seen before. When I first got the Trendmasters sets, like I was just like, who is this blue Godzilla? Like what is going on? Who is this demon looking Mothra? Like I am intrigued by this creature,
Oh my
right?
goodness, absolutely.
So yeah, like, and I think when we finally got a hold of that stuff, it really felt like, scoring big time because we had just thought it was a figment of our imaginations at a certain point. I remember just going and asking it. My dad would take me to Toys R Us, and
Oh,
I would interview the workers, be like, "Do you know this toy? Have you heard of this character? Are you aware of this like figure that exists?" And they would be like, "I have no idea. I don't even know what Godzilla really is." I'm like, and of course my parents were just like, "Oh, there he goes again, going on and on about Godzilla." So, yeah. Yeah. So as you got older, so we were just talking about like the single digit years as you entered the teenage phase of life. Like, how did your love of Godzilla shift? Like, what else did you do to kind of like pursue more Godzilla material, etc.?
I'm gonna back up just a little bit because once let's say once we got a hold of a personal computer for like the first time, this is like mid '90s, right?
Hmm.
You know, more access would become something that we would be accustomed to a little bit. You had stuff like Barry's Temple of Godzilla, right? Which is
Hmm.
was like our shrine, so to speak, of like
Yes.
knowledge, where you would go seeing those little gifs, those little like 2 3 second gifs of like Godzilla battling, Space Godzilla and Mech Godzilla 2 and Destroya. I was like, there are more Godzilla movies. There are more recent ones, and they're still making them at this moment. I mean, granted, this was like '95, so at this point,
Hmm.
this was right before Destroya, but
Hmm.
still, like seeing those gifs, I was like, oh my god, there's more Godzilla movies. I thought it was just the Showa era. I just thought it was the '60s and '70s
Hmm.
and '84, and then eventually I would see at this random video store, Blowout Video at the outlet mall where I grew up, they had Godzilla versus Biollante, and I was like, ooh, Biollante. There we go. There's a new Godzilla movie. And it's a sequel to 84, 84, 85. Even more perfect. But yeah, once I got older, especially in my teenage years, I still was a huge fan, and I would let people know that. Like I wasn't shy about it. Like you would come to my house, and I still had all the Trendmasters like set up on like display on my displays, and people like, "Oh, you Godzilla, huh?" I'm like, "Yeah, Godzilla. Like, what of it?" But I became kind of like, my uncle was a huge influence. So when I got older, I became a metalhead. I got into like bands like Metallica and Iron Maiden, all those bands. Like he was into all that stuff, so he got me into all that. And so, and then I was also getting into other movie monsters like Predator. I was introduced to Predator and obviously Aliens at a very young age. So I was kind of dialed into all that stuff. King Kong, was
Hmm.
also a part of that, a big part of that. Godzilla I was not as fanatical as when I was a kid. When you're a kid, it's like the pinnacle of your world.
Hmm.
Once I got older and more distracted by things in life, like whether it's school, like activities, like I was in the marching band or like I was in forensics. I did forensics and
I
all
was
that
in
stuff.
marching band too. Woo.
Marching band, there you go. Where'd you play?
I played the saxophone. What did you play?
Oh my goodness, my brother. So my twin brother played the saxophone. I
Oh,
played the
okay.
trombone. I played the
Nice,
trombone. I wanted to
nice.
play trumpet, and I wanted to play trumpet because I was a huge fan of John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith music, and they
Ah,
utilize a lot of trumpets in their music. So
mhm.
I was really disappointed when my music teacher. I know I'm going off here, but
No, I love it.
my music teacher, she said, because I had pretty bad allergies and congestion when I was a kid, like my nose, you could probably still hear a little bit. I couldn't really breathe through my nose. So
Mhm.
she said she discouraged me from playing trumpet. She's like, you can't play trumpet because the mouthpiece is so small. You have to breathe through your nose to play it, like to
Oh, yeah.
properly play it. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, well that sucks. So she was like, actually, you might enjoy this though. It's a bigger trumpet. It's a trombone. It has a bigger mouthpiece. You can kind of breathe through your mouth while you're playing it. And
Mhm.
so I picked it up and started playing it. And then I realized, because this is also something we could talk about later, but how Godzilla shaped me. But because of Godzilla at an early age, being exposed to all that, I became a huge fan of soundtracks and score music. And so that was instead, okay, so when most
Oh.
kids my age were listening to like pop music or like, whether it was Whitney Houston or Michael Jackson, or you name it, Biggie, like all that stuff,
Mhm.
I was listening to mainly score music. I would like seek it out. I would have to sometimes I would even take a stereo cassette player and I would hit record right next to the speaker and record the movie so I could listen to it on trips. Like I recorded Godzilla 1985, I recorded Destroy All Monsters just so I could hear the music on family trips or what I would like, because we didn't have the soundtracks right isolated, so that's the only way I would do it. And this is how another psycho that I kind of am is, the Godzilla game, Super Godzilla for Super Nintendo.
Absolutely.
So I would go to the main title screen and play. They had a way you could play the tracks. I would play the tracks for like a minute or two and just record it so I could play them like my own soundtrack.
Jonathan, I am having a moment because I don't think I've ever had anyone have this close of an experience to my childhood. Because
Really?
I literally
Hey.
used to take a cassette player and record all of the Mothra songs and like all of the
Oh,
soundtrack moments, so then I could go
so good.
listen to them. Because I couldn't afford like at that time, this is going to really age us, but CD players were new and I couldn't
Yeah.
afford a CD player. So I had to use a cassette player and just
Hmm.
record. And I am doing dishes, just bopping to the Mothra song while So yeah, no, that
I love it.
is so quintessentially central to my experience because I would argue that the Godzilla movies and the Mothra trilogy were largely instrumental, no pun intended, in getting me into like music and being a
Amazing.
musician. I fancy myself a musician still, even though I barely play anymore. But like I really think that that's just another layer of influence that Godzilla films can have that we don't really talk about that much. And I
100%.
am super nerding out that you have that same experience too, because everybody I knew they would always be like, Donnie, that's weird. Like, why are you recording the TV? Like, why are you? And I'm like, because I
Yeah.
can.
And you'd have to have like anytime anyone would say anything, like my mom would be doing something or whatever, I'd always have to be, me be like please be quiet, I'm trying to record, and like have it sitting there, and but that was the experience. I mean, like you, I was all about cassette tapes. I don't think I owned a CD player until I was in high school, honestly, because I was so far
Mhm.
behind. I
Same.
was convinced that cassette was where it was at. I remember going to what was at the time National Record Mart, and then they became FYE, or FYE like bought them out. Um,
Mhm.
I would go there and I would go straight to the cassette section where the soundtracks were, and I would when Jurassic Park came out, I was one of the first to get that. Independence Day, Congo, I mean, you name it, any soundtrack that was big when we were kids, like I was after,
Mhm.
and I would have in my collection, so I would just be listening to them all the time. I mean, The Fugitive was up there, like I just loved music, score music, and I wanted to be a composer. That was initially one of the things I wanted to do. I wanted to be an Akira Ifukube. I wanted to
Mhm.
do that. But yeah, I'm going off a little bit, but
No, this is
um,
what I like. I love it. But so I'm gonna be honest, like it was a game changer. I did eventually get a CD player too, and like
yeah,
it
the
just
non-skip
goes to show.
ones, right? The
Yeah, the
ones that,
non-skip ones. I think
yeah.
so. I did. Okay, I technically did have a CD player, but it was like a boom box,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna hold a boom box up to
If
anyway.
bringing out a family trip, like I'm gonna bring this with me.
Well, I mean, I may have brought it around a few times to things, but
Love it.
but when I finally did get a CD player, I was like, I can go on walks now and listen to this music, and it's great. And I remember like what was it, the Best of Godzilla
Yes,
19, like it was like the Heisei Best of Godzilla CD.
1984 to 1995, and then the
So
show one
good.
came out. Crescendo Records.
Crescendo.
Yep,
Bless Crescendo. When I
I
listened
know.
to that pop version of the Mothra song, I thought I was Britney Spears, bitch. Like I was doing choreography. I Thank goodness my parents never walked in because they would have been like,
You know,
you know.
what's interesting about that is that when those came out, we still hadn't seen the Heisei film. They weren't released yet. I think it was
Mhm.
like a year before that, or even a few months. It was like a back in the spring or something. Because I remember getting it and listening to those scores and those cues, and I was like, I've never heard these before. Like these are, it was like Akira Ifukube updated. And hearing the
Mhm.
pop version of the Mothra song, I was like, it blew my mind because I was like, whoa, this is, I've never heard anything like this. It's completely
Mhm.
different. Like
It's a
it's not,
bop.
it was a pop song. It was my first time hearing a pop song related to Godzilla. And I guess, that's not entirely true because like we had Godzilla versus Gigan, right? The end of
Mhm.
that. And but when in terms of the modern age, hearing a pop song uh, akin to like a 90s pop song, right?
Oh
With that
yeah.
rendition. I mean, it was mind blowing.
I feel like
Absolutely mind blowing.
I feel like every era they release like a version of Mothra's song like that. Like Tokyo SOS had like that techno dance version, which
Yeah.
I I loved
Yeah.
it. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. I've watched that at least 1,000 times in my lifetime, I think. So, in fact, I recently my parents let me use their camcorder, like their gigantic, like early
The
90s
RCA, like
camcorder.
you
Yeah.
put up. Yeah.
I have
Oh,
a
yeah.
video. I don't think I will ever reveal it. It's
No,
really
you have to.
cringy.
You have
It's a
to.
video of me dancing in a tie-dye shirt. I looked terrible to the techno version of the Mother's
Okay. Okay.
song.
For for the people, for the people. At some point, I think they would like to see that. I would like to see that. Look,
Okay.
I've shown videos of myself barely being able to speak a word, mumbling and fumbling over myself saying I got a VHS tape for Christmas and I couldn't read what it said, but I saw it was Godzilla and I was just my dad was like, "What is it, John?" And I'm like, "It's a tape." But like and then my brother's starting to read on it and I'm like pulling away from him. I'm like, "What does that say?" And my uncle's like, "Oh, that's the Mysterians and Terror of Mechagodzilla." And I was like blown away that he got me that on VHS. This was like, I don't know, 1991 or maybe it was very early 90s for sure. Um, but yeah, like that,
So
those are
wholesome.
those are things that, especially you look at them now, they might be cringe for you, but for others, like the to me, it's like I want people to relate to my experience, and
Yeah,
it really heals me because I see it still from a childlike lens, and then
yeah,
maybe others can see that in themselves. Like I remember having a similar, or maybe like the same experience, and then they
absolutely.
they can think about it, and it's all to me. It's like nostalgia is a great window back through into the soul,
I
and
think
you can
so.
recapture things of like your childhood and keep those memories alive because those are very important. The way how you grow up is very important.
Yeah. I think nostalgia is where we go to escape or to
It's a
feel
safe
safe,
zone.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's why, like, during these unsettling times, I think that's why Godzilla is such a comfort to us too, is because there is like that safety and security in that nostalgia, right? It's not to say
100%.
that nostalgia can't be toxic to a certain point too, because like we've seen it
There's
happen many times.
gatekeepers that the
Yeah,
gatekeeping is part of it. We can leave that at the back door and never open
right.
it, right?
Right.
We go through the
But like
front door.
yeah, but the positive aspects of nostalgia, I think, really help people. And it's funny because you mentioned that because I think we all had like those niche things that we were into associated with Godzilla. Like I recently had somebody reach out to me and tell me that they remember the really, I thought, bad Mothra song music videos I used to make on YouTube when I was in high school. This was like literally
Oh,
when YouTube first came out.
I was gonna say like when it first launched.
Yeah.
Are these still available?
I may have them on a hard drive somewhere. But, like, I look back on them now, and I remember I think I watched one, like, a couple of years ago, and I was like, I thought I was killing it. Like, I was like, I thought I was again, Britney Spears. And then but somebody comment or reached out to me recognizing me, and they were like, "I, like, fell in love with the Godzilla music because of, like, your, Mothra song music videos I used to watch," and I was just
Oh,
like, "What?" And, like, so, like, it was, like, kind of a healing moment because I feel like, especially millennials and some, like, older Gen Z, I feel like because of our early internet activities, we've been often criticized as being cringe, but I think that that cringe is enduring in a certain way because it was a
yeah.
time in our lives where we didn't have to worry about the debilitating heft of a dystopian hellscape,
Yeah, well, yeah, surely it's getting there.
unlike
But
now.
yeah, yeah. Well, what you make up a good you make a really good point is that I always think about this in terms of you and I growing up in our youth. Really, we grew up with technology. It wasn't handed to us on a silver platter. We weren't handed an iPhone at a very young age. In
Mhm,
fact, the first iPhone came out, I believe it was like 2007. I had like a Razor or a flip phone that I just got in college. I never had a cell phone in high school or anything like that.
mhm.
And, you know, we grew up with technology. We grew up with all the new gaming systems, all from like the transition from VCR to DVD and Blu-ray
Yeah.
and, laser disc to, DVD basically,
Mhm.
like the early version. And even like we were still going outside and playing with our friends and calling people on the phone and we still lived in a very much an analog society at that
Right.
time growing up. And so we kind of grew up with that. So I feel like it's unique in a way because if you go back even further, right?
Yeah.
It's even more so analog. It's even more so that. But there was a transition, but it was a slower progression. I feel like from the 80s to the 90s, technology just shot through a major
Yeah.
gap. It was
And
huge.
we got to experience firsthand that really fast transition.
The internet, I mean, my goodness, like
Mhm.
having the internet at your disposal in the mid early to mid 90s was like that was a game changer. And now you can
Absolutely.
just Google whatever. But I mean, back then, I'd type in Godzilla and maybe only one thing would come up. And like I said, Barry's Temple Godzilla was like one site. That
Mhm.
was it. I
Yeah.
there weren't a lot out there.
Yeah.
Wasn't a lot to look at.
And it was very sparse, and it took a lot of work to find anything, right? And then, of course, not to mention waiting on dial-up internet for 8,000 years for a
Uh,
10-second clip of a Godzilla movie to load was
yeah,
taught us patience.
dial
Taught
up.
us
Yeah,
so much
my
patience.
grandma's or my mom's like, John, you have to get off. I have to call your grandmother. I was like, okay. I was just about to watch this like clip. Like you can't just take this away from me. Or I was downloading what I thought was a soundtrack, right? And as it being like spam or something, I don't know. Like the risk of early internet downloading. You never
I
know what
may
you're gonna
have
get.
I may have downloaded a virus once finding obscure Mothra songs on the internet because I remember when got that CD, right? Like, I was like, "There's gotta be more out there that I'm unaware
Oh,
of." So I went to, like,
yeah.
what was the website called? I think it was called altavista.com, where, like,
Oh
people
my
would just
goodness.
upload files, and lo and behold,
Oh,
I
Alta
downloaded one
Vista.
that ruined a computer.
Wow, there you go. Or like that was before LimeWire, I believe.
That was before LimeWire. That was
Or like Napster or whatever I never used
Yep.
Napster, but LimeWire I was a big proponent of. Actually, I found a lot of Godzilla music on LimeWire. This is probably like 2006, 2005. I started
Mm.
finding some. I'm not proud to say I was downloading illegal music, but back then you had no. I still couldn't go to a CD store and buy a Godzilla soundtrack.
Oh, yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
so you got to
Yeah,
find them any way you can at that point.
yeah.
So
No, so okay, so we were talking about, like, the teenage years and, like, kind of the
yes, oh
college
my
days,
goodness.
like, so transitioning from there, like, into like, full-fledged adulthood ranging up till now, like, how has your love of Godzilla shifted? Like, how have you continued to immerse yourself in the community, etcetera?
Well, so in high school, it kind of I guess I really didn't. We went off on a tangent, which is great, but
I love it.
it was, when in my teenage years, I was into it and I wasn't shy of saying it, but it wasn't important as much important to me when I was a kid. Now,
Mhm.
when I became an adult, and I'm saying when I became an adult, when I moved out to Los Angeles in 2008, I grew up in the Pittsburgh area, just north of Pittsburgh, for almost my entire childhood into my young adult years. And then I
Hmm.
moved out to LA in 2008. That's when I really started reconnecting with my love for Godzilla. And it shot back to, it kind of took a full circle moment back to my childhood love.
Oh.
And that's the connection there is I fell more in love with Godzilla because when you're a kid, even there's so many more distractions, right? So Godzilla was a huge part of my childhood, but then there were other things that would come along that would distract me, right?
Hmm.
Whether it be a cartoon or anything else. So Godzilla really took precedent for me, especially around like I'd say my rekindling love for collecting in 2014. Because I just met some people that had we were all very of like mind, and they were big nerds like I was, but of different things. And then they said they were like, what do you like? And I was like, oh, I love Godzilla and Japanese monster movies and Tokusatsu and Gamera and Ultraman. And they were like, oh, that's really cool. We don't know much about that. But like I was teaching them about that, and they were teaching me about like Marvel and comics, and because I wasn't really a big comic or Marvel guy when I was a kid, or I really
Hmm.
didn't, I wasn't a Marvel DC. I wasn't into really all that stuff. I liked Batman, but like, and I did like Spider-Man, but I wasn't into all that when I was a kid.
Hmm.
So they kind of got me into that at an older age. So we were back and forth with each other, like showing each other, and they had started collecting. So then I started collecting, and I will say a
Oh.
good friend of mine. He became a good friend of mine through my twin brother, who they were good friends in college. His name is Jesse Bender. He's a big collector. He's got one of the biggest collections of classic toys, new toys. He's just a toy lover, toy collector. He still has all of his classic He-Man, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Transformers, you name it. But he also
Wow.
collects newer stuff, and he loves Kamen Rider. He loves Power Rangers. He kind of got me back into Power Rangers when I was a kid. I loved it, but he got me back into it in a recent times. But
Hmm.
like Sentai and all that. But he rekindled my love for collecting, and that was what inferred like my love for Godzilla again, and became like this here. And like it was SH Monster Arts first, got into those at an early age, got into those when they were pretty big, and then started kind of evolving from there. So definitely
I
my
love
adulthood, I
that.
got back into it, like way more into it than I was a kid, I'd say. I'm more
Yeah.
into Godzilla now than when I was a kid.
I feel like I am too. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like I loved Godzilla as a kid, but now I
Yeah.
feel like because Godzilla has touched various aspects of my life, I've kind of just dived into like the media more, like the analysis of the media more, like so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And I love that we've gotten to a point in our lives though, like where there can be a meaningful exchange between people where we do share our love of different things. Because I feel like when I was growing up, like that exchange wasn't there. Like people either thought that Godzilla was cool or they thought that I was dumb for liking Godzilla. Like there was there was a very distinct line between the two schools of thought.
Yeah.
So well, okay, so let's talk a little bit about Collect All Monsters because I know you've been, a significant voice in Collect All Monsters. Like, how did you get connected with that community?
So it all starts with David Eric Dobko, friend of the show and friend to all. I mean, okay, so David and I, during the pandemic, I had messaged him a few times on Facebook before the pandemic because when my wife and I, Janelle, when we got married in 2019, our big honeymoon plan was to go to Japan,
Hmm.
and we had it all planned out: Tokyo, Kyoto, Osaka. Tokyo was going to be 5 days, and the last day in Tokyo we were going to spend in the Godzilla room at the Godzilla Hotel. And we had the whole thing planned out, all these things, all these activities planned.
Mm.
And I was texting and I was messaging David because I knew that he had been going a lot with Keith and Kyle on a lot of trips. And of course, the documentary that they did, which is
Hmm.
incredible. That was another documentary that I watched that it's funny watching that on YouTube back in 2014 in my little apartment. This is before I even knew Janelle, before I even got together with Janelle. Uh, I was watching that documentary. It was like 11 a.m. or something. And I said to myself, I would love to work with those guys someday. I would love to work with them. And
Mm.
just so happens that David and I started talking because I was asking him advice about Japan. And he was being really, I mean, to his credit, he didn't really know me, but he was very gracious and very kind and very helpful and informative. And then during the pandemic, you know, we all started getting online more. And I found Collect All Monsters. And David and I, we started talking more. And we became closer and better friends and more familiar with each other. And he introduced me to Collect All Monsters to Kyle. And like he would suggest me to come on a live stream. I remember the one they did in 2021 was the celebration of Ultraman.
Mm.
Ultraman's Eiji Tsuburai's birthday and Ultraman. And they had an Ultraman episode, and I was listening to it, and they wanted someone from the show, they wanted one of the people in the chat to come on the show, like live then. And David was like, "What about Jonathan Portman? Let's bring him on." And Kyle was like, "Okay, cool." And so that was my first time being on being on a stream on a Collecto Monsters, and then um, just talking to them more. And Kyle was like, "Well, would you like to come on as like a producer? We need help like producing the show." And because I had helped Kyle out with doing some video editing
Mhm.
projects for the uh, the the kaiju line con that he did.
Oh, yeah, during the pandemic, yeah.
Yeah, and so I helped him out with making some little short form video advertisements for the live stream that they would show periodically throughout the live streams. And so we started talking because we had that connection. He's a graphic designer and editor, and he's in post production. I'm in post production, so we that creative sort of boundary helped us connect a little more. And then he asked me to come on as a producer, and that was my first. I think it was the first show, the first January show of 2022 was my first year producing with them, and it's been great ever since. And
And four
I will
years.
say, it's crazy. Like I told Kyle this, and he was like, he's like, you manifested it. It wasn't, and it wasn't like I was planning to do this. I genuinely said 15 years ago that I wanted to work with. I wished I could work with these guys, and I would like to someday, and it'd be a dream. And here I am working with them on
Mhm.
this show, Collect All Monsters, and in the group. And it's a blessing. I couldn't ask for a better group of humans to be around and be with. Um, I love the group. I love, the crew. They're all great. And they brought me on. And, sometimes I go through, I'm sure we all have this. We're all guilty of this, but I go through imposter syndrome sometimes where I'm like, I don't deserve this. Like, I'm not anyone
Oh,
special. I'm just here. Like, I love this. I'm a fan, but anyone else could do this, like, and they chose me. And I feel grateful for that. And, you know, it is a blessing, really.
I
I
can't
couldn't ask for
imagine
anything better.
anyone more deserving.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
No, good people draw in good people, and I think, like, in my connections to, Collect All Monsters have been so it just has helped me develop such a sense of belonging in this fandom because, like, I mean, you know some of my history, like, I've struggled periodically with belonging in the fandom, and in that space, like, spaces like that, Kaiju United, like, these different groups and sites that really just prioritize, like, building community, like, those spaces matter a lot, and
100%.
it's the leading voices, like yourself, behind these communities that really set that example for people and help people know that those are safe places to go to, right? So no, like people see that and they celebrate it, and I am grateful to count myself among those people who see it and celebrate it. So,
What's beautiful about it and what needs to be understood is that, it is a community, and we all love the same thing. So why can't we all embrace one another's individuality together? That to me is the most important thing. Like you said, communities like Kaiju United, Collect All Monsters, growing up with Godzilla,
mm,
these communities are here for people, human
yeah.
beings. We're all human beings. We're all people in the end. Like, you know, your individuality is important.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
it shouldn't matter what you believe or like who you love or like you're in this we're in this together. It should
Yeah,
be a shared space and a shared community, and we all should support one another. It sh-
absolutely.
love is love, and we should love one another. You know, that's how it should be.
And I think in 2026, that message is more important now than it ever has been, frankly. So,
100%.
and so I think we need to remember that. And I hope that people who listen to this know that, like, we are continuing to do what we do to keep these communities safe and accessible for everyone. So,
Yep.
well, Jonathan, I do have some indulgent questions to ask you because
Yes.
I need to know your favorite things, right?
Okay. Okay.
So, which Godzilla films would you say are your favorites and why? If you have a top 3 to 5, share those.
Hmm. Well, first I'm going to share I kind of alluded to this earlier. My all-time favorite Godzilla movie, and my number one, is Mothra versus Godzilla. Okay. And this
Mm,
movie is important to me because it was one of the early, it wasn't the first movie I saw, but it was the first Godzilla movie I watched that had, and I know Destroy Monsters was the first one, technically, with the shared universe,
mhm,
but this was the first 1v1 Kaiju v Kaiju movie that I saw.
mm,
The first big showdown was Mothra versus Godzilla. And I think Mothra versus Godzilla, in my opinion, I will say that is it the is it the greatest Godzilla movie ever made? No, I wouldn't say that. I would say in terms of production, you're talking about like the modern age versus a classic age. I would
mhm.
give that to Godzilla minus one. It's certainly deserving of a lot of facets of being an Oscar winner. The
Yeah,
everything that it had going for it, it took the Godzilla story and it modernized it in for us today. But with visual effects, I mean, you could point to a lot of things, but my personal favorite of all time is Mothra vs. Godzilla. It's because I think, in terms of the classic golden era of the show era, I think it is the one that's at the very top. It has everything you could want in a Godzilla movie. It has great monster action. It has compelling human characters, well written
mm,
human characters, and it has a really interesting human plot through or storyline that really carries through. It's not like you're just waiting for the monsters to show up. It's not like they're just
yeah,
like, oh, well, we're the foils to get to the monsters. No, there's an important story there to be had with those characters. And you have great military battles, you have great set pieces,
mhm.
great soundtrack. I mean,
Oh my
you're
god.
talking about Akira Ifukube bringing in his own Mothra theme as well as the original Mothra theme, blending them well enough together that they can coalesce in the same space and
Mhm,
not feel very different. I laugh when there's interviews or Ifukube had once said that he had turned down the original Mothra because he didn't think he could do that style of what
mhm.
they wanted from it. And my friend, Mothra versus Godzilla proved that indeed he can do
Oh,
that.
for sure.
He gave Mothra a more because after the original Mothra, it's kind of, I mean, Mothra versus Godzilla in the timeline, you could say that what happens to Infant Island as
Mhm,
a result of the original, the exposure the original gave humanity to Infant Island, that is what Infant Island has become today
mhm.
in Mothra versus Godzilla. So when you watch it, Mothra is not given so much a fanciful, fantastical outlook and view. It's not as a very positive look. It's a very melancholic, a very tragic look at what
Mhm.
has become of Mothra and its people. Because
Interesting, yeah.
and you hear it in the music. I mean, Sacred Springs, or that song is so tragically heartfelt
Yeah.
to the time to what they're going through, as a community at that time.
Mhm.
And to me, that song always brings chills, and even sometimes I well up because it's so emotional.
Yeah.
Um, and it really says a lot about the state of the characters at that time and the distrust they have in humanity as a
Yeah.
whole, and to do the right thing or to, you know, to be kind to one another. The speech that Yuriko Hoshi gives,
Mm,
you know, when they're pleading for the Islanders to help, right? Um, to me, that all coalesces into a perfect Godzilla movie experience. I think
yeah.
it was the marriage of all things, from a technical aspect of the visual effects to the Godzilla design, to the music, to the tone, to the characters, to the length, even the length of the movie. It's all perfect to me.
Yeah. I couldn't have thought of a better analysis of Mothra versus Godzilla than that, honestly. Like, so applause. No,
That's numero uno.
that was great.
That's the
So
first one.
what's number two?
Number two, okay, so it's from this point on, it's probably gonna not be numbered because I know
Okay.
Mothra vs. Godzilla is number one, but it would be unfair of me to try to figure out what's my second favorite. But I will, because it's always a fluid. Everyone
It
always
shifts.
says, and you agree, the list is always fluid. It always changes
Yeah.
based on year, time, or what I'm feeling. But I will say that mainstays in that. Obviously, Destroy All Monsters is in there, and we know why, because it's not necessarily my favorite to watch, but it is the one that got me into it, and it holds a lot of nostalgic, important value to me in my first ever exposure. So that's in there. And I love, of course, the soundtrack is one of the tops for me. That's in my
Mm.
tops. That's in my top five. Akira Ifukube's main title theme, the Destroy All Monsters March, is one of the greatest
Oh,
marches
it's so
he's ever
good.
created. And
So
he
good.
never went back to, I mean, he did go back to it once in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, you know, for the military. He came back to it once, but he never really came back to it again, and for good reason. He probably said to himself, well, if this was the end of my journey in the Showa era at the time, which is what it was, then
Hmm.
I'm going to go out with a bang, and there's no other, I can't come up with anything better than that. So
Yeah. Top
that's
tier.
where I'm ending it. It's my swan song until, of course, Terror Mechagodzilla. But you know, um, the next one I would say on there is obviously Godzilla 19. I'm going to say Godzilla 1985 first because that was all of our first exposures to it. And I will say, you can agree or not, but Godzilla 1985 to me, I think is one of the better US versions. Probably the best US version of a Godzilla film that we've ever had in terms of
I
like
would
what they did
agree.
with it. They cut it up. Okay, the thing with the Cold War, the thing that they did with like switching the Russian POV was dumb because they were like in the
Mhm.
original, the Russians are trying to stop the launch in '85 because of the Cold War and the political tension at the time. They're like, let's make him try. He's like, I need to shoot this missile. You know,
Mhm.
I need to blow it all up.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing I disagree with. But in terms of what they did, cobbling together this US version, they cut the movie down, but they gave it a more of a brisk pace. And it to me, it plays actually kind of better than 84 in terms of the
Mhm.
overall length because I think there's parts of 84 I love and they're important parts, but I think they tend to draw on a little too long. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of the political stuff where they're really like struggling with how they should
Pacing.
break this
Yeah.
to the world, and it's like to me some of that stuff goes on a little too long. Yeah, we understand the point, but like yeah, the pacing in 84 to me is better in 85 in a lot of ways, but I also am a little biased because I've watched that growing up for so long that to
Same.
me I can't see it through any other lens. And once I saw 84 for the first time, once Kraken released it, I still love it, but I prefer if I'm going to watch an experience of 84, I'm going to watch 85.
Yeah. Raymond Burr's speech at the end still just gives me goosebumps to this
Oh,
day.
100%.
Like, just one of the quintessential Godzilla speech, like film speeches that kind of gives you like the main point of everything. So good.
Yeah,
So good.
and that speech written by himself, written by him, you know, and he you could tell he poured every ounce of his heart into that. And there's an interview that he gave. You can watch it on YouTube. Just look up Raymond Burr, Godzilla 1985 or Godzilla, and I forget who he was talking to. Maybe it was Bob Costas. It was like back in the 80s. He was promoting something else. He was
Mhm.
promoting another project. But Godzilla came up because he had just done that you know that he they said he was returning in '85 and they were kind of making a joke of it, and he said, "Oh no, he's like I love Godzilla." He's like he basically was shutting him down, saying Godzilla is, you know, it's an important thing, and it's an
Mhm.
important thing in my life. I kind of grew up. I started with it. I'm kind of ending with it. Like Raymond Burr had a lot of respect and reverence for Godzilla and the
Yeah.
intent of the story, and the fact that they wanted to kind of make a joke of 85 originally, make it a parody, and he said absolutely not. We're
Mhm.
not doing that. We're playing it straight. You know, they tried to get him to drink a can of Dr Pepper
Mhm.
to promote the film during the movie. He's like, he just stared at the guy like, I'm not doing that. I'm not, we're not doing that. And so you watch that
Mhm.
movie, and for all that the dubs can gain a lot of negativity, that one I think did its best to present it in the straightest way that it could in terms of
Mhm.
keeping it on the level and not going too crazy. And even the music, like the music that they chose to kind of incorporate with Reijiro Kuroku's original score with Christopher
Mhm.
Young from DEFCON 4, it matches perfectly with the film. You wouldn't even you would listen to it and probably think that it's the same composer, but it's
Yeah.
two different composers, and they just grabbed some other library music from this other guy and brought it in, and it still matches up to me today. The tone of 84, 85, everything about that movie to me lives distinctly in a time capsule in the mid 80s. Because when you
Yes.
look at what movies looked like, how they presented dystopian or apocalyptic scenarios, the color palettes were always very similar. It was this kind of orangey red, dark
Mhm.
sort of vibe. And 85, 84 encapsulates that perfectly.
The scene that
Perfectly.
encapsulates that so much to me are any of the scenes that are, like, on the battleships, or, like, the scene where,
Yeah.
like, the nuclear warhead bursts in the atmosphere and it just
Yeah. Oh,
turns everything like, that
yes.
so quintessentially that's the word of the night, quintessentially '80s looking, like, it's
100%. That's why I
so
say
good.
that this movie kind of separates itself from the other definitely from Biolante, because Biolante was we're merging into the 90s now. It looked a little different, but 84, 85, it looks so 80s, and it
Mhm.
is the only one that really does look like that. I think aside from maybe like the production design a little bit, Biolante does have some of that, but again, I feel like Biolante is starting to transition, you know, slowly into the 90s at that point in terms of
Yeah.
how movies are made, and they look a little different, and the tones are a little different, the color palettes are a little different, and they're a little darker and more muted. This one was dark, but it was like you still had the vibrancy of, like you said, that part that you just described is one of my favorite moments with the music, the synthy sort of like trancy music when the warhead goes off and you see those reds and those oranges and the blues and stuff. I look at that and I'm like, I don't know why, but it reminds me so much of this
Yes.
look right here,
Yes, yes,
right?
yes.
This is what it reminds me of, and this to me is why that movie separates itself from any other Godzilla movie, from the Showa era to the Heisei era. You might as well put it in its own era, just right there in the smack dab in the middle.
It could be, honestly, yeah.
I mean, even
I
the
think that's
music.
a
I mean,
great
it's not. There's no Ifukube in there. There's really like Kuroku decided to do a more John Williams esque score for it, and I think that's what also separates it is the tone from the darker tone is that score is so dark and so operatic. I mean,
Mhm, yeah.
you've never heard anything like that again, really. And I
No.
mean, Naoki Sato for -1 maybe, but again, he went back to Ifukube tracks as well. So
Yeah.
Kuroku, for his to his credit, really didn't dive into that realm. He wanted to keep it. He wanted to do his own thing, and I think they also wanted to do their own thing. I know they asked Ifukube to come back, and he declined respectfully, but obviously he would have no choice to
Right.
come back. But you know,
Yeah.
that's why the movie is just it's its own thing, and I love it for it.
It's so good. It's so
So good.
good. So let's do one more. What's your 4th
One more.
other favorite?
I would say -1, but even though it's like probably the most well-made Godzilla movie, and it's really up there as like a top Godzilla movie. It's not necessarily my favorite. I would go back to the ones that I grew up with, and so I would say War of the Gargantuas is one that,
Ooh.
and it's not a Godzilla movie, I know, but it's
But still,
adjacent.
yeah.
It's in the same universe. That movie, because I related to it a lot, being that Sonda and Gyra are basically twins. Like they're basically brothers that are not. They're not like they're connected only by cellular level. They're not really connected in terms of biologically. They're not like straight up brothers,
Mhm.
but they're from the same lineage. And to me, that they come off the movie portrays them as brothers, as feuding brothers. And to
Mhm.
me, I related to that a lot as a kid because I have a twin brother, and I myself related to Gyra a lot when I was a kid because when I was a kid, I had a short fuse, and I had a temper issue, and I would lose my temper quite often. I would be a little brat and a little quote unquote shithead. So I had some Gyra in me when I was a kid, so I related to that. And my brother was always a little more diplomatic, and he was a lot more of the Sonda type. But that movie, also for the soundtrack, love the score. I think it's one of Ifukube's greatest monster movie themes ever.
Mm.
Just it just hits to the core. And the way the movie opens, everything about the tone of the movie, Gyra and Sonda as monsters are to me still terrifying. Um,
Mhm.
I love everything about War of the Gargantuas, and even the ending, I always get a little sad. When they're
Yeah.
fighting with the eruption going on in the background. It's like they're basically just fighting to their death essentially. But that's
It's an
another one
underrated
that really
movie.
hits
I think
home.
it's a
It
very
is
underrated movie, and I do think that it's grown on me over the years because I really didn't used to like that movie at one point, but ever since, subsequent rewatches, I'm like, actually, there's a lot of stuff to unpack in this movie. So,
also
um,
seeing this and seeing this in Sunko's video. I was like, I have to have this. And this was,
yeah.
this isn't the original by any means, but because you can see it's in really good condition. I don't know what happened to mine. Probably when, I moved when I was a kid or whatever. And, things get lost,
A lot of
but
use, things get
a lot of
lost,
things, yeah,
Yeah. No, I
things
totally get
happen.
that. Well,
But yeah.
so do you have a favorite kaiju other than Godzilla and a
Mm.
favorite human character?
So favorite kaiju other than Godzilla, I was always really a big fan of Anguirus
Okay.
or Anguillus if we're gonna go all the way back to the dubbing days. It's funny. I always joke. I always say this to people is that I know the dubs say Anguillus, and but I don't care. I'll always call him Anguillus for some reason because
Mhm.
of that. But also, the Japanese. If you look at the Japanese phonetic of it, it's Angirasu, and I'm
Mhm.
like, if you put an L there, it kind of sounds very similar. So
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah.
even though it's trademarked as Anguirus, I get it. I get it. But I'm the same way with
Both names
Mogra.
matter.
Mogera,
Mhm.
they've trademarked Mogera to be like all of Mogera, like the one from Mysterians and from. But I'm like, no, Mogra and Mogera are two separate robots. Mogra from Mysterians is Mogra. Then you have Mogera, which is phonetically
Mhm.
the mobile, whatever it's called. I forget. It's like
Oh,
the
that
the
long
the, ac- the
acronym, yeah.
acronym, yeah, for Mogera from Space Godzilla. So it's like, I love all the kaiju that's so equally, but I love all of them. But Anguirus to me was always like the underdog. I was always rooting for the underdog. To me, I kind of felt like I was somewhat of an underdog growing up. There was a lot
Mhm.
against me. We'll get into that a little later because I know one of the questions you're going to ask me. It's definitely going to hit home
Mm.
there. And Anguirus, it was always one that he was trying his best
Yeah.
and going above and beyond, and none more prevalent than in Godzilla versus Gigan.
Yeah.
The scene where
Yeah.
Godzilla is getting pummeled by the Godzilla Tower, and that music, and it's so dramatic, and you see the close up of Anguirus just looking on, like, I have to do something, and that's my friend, and Gigan's holding him back with the buzzsaw, and then he says, "I don't care, I'm just gonna go straight in and like try to get through you," and ends up like getting his head cut, just going and getting his butt beat. just to get to his friend. And to me, like I always used to get emotional for that part watching it because not
Yeah.
only Godzilla is getting like, pummeled and he's bleeding, like that's the first time we've ever seen that. But like even in Gearus, like it's pretty brutal battle. Like they're getting beat up. And
Yeah.
but to me, and then same thing in Destroy All Monsters. He gets taken up in the air and dropped, and it's like, but he still gets up, and he's still there in the end, biting one of the necks of Ghidra. He's there. He's still there. So,
Yeah.
Anguirus has definitely always been one of my favorites because of that reason.
That battle in Godzilla versus Gigan, I used to have a really hard time watching it when I was a kid because it was so sad to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, but then like obviously things turn out okay, but like,
Yeah.
I really feel like they do an excellent job in that film emoting like the kaiju especially. So
Yeah, and what a way for Jun Fukuda too to be the guy that delivers that because his films are not known for that. His
yeah,
films are a little lighter in tone and more peppy in step, and like Sea Monster and Son of Godzilla are more colorful and more vibrant. And this one was definitely not that. Like you could tell
yeah,
that he was pulling out his Ishiro Honda in a way. He was like
absolutely.
making this a little darker in tone and trying to get back to the essence of what the golden era films were
Yeah,
in a way.
I would agree with that 100%. How about a human character? Favorite human character?
Human character, I was always in love with Yuriko Hoshi when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and Yuriko Hishimi, who played obviously from Ultra Seven. That's one of my favorite. That's my favorite Ultraman show, Ultraman and Ultraman show.
Hmm.
Plays Donna or Anne, depending on which version you watch.
Hmm.
Um, and then the you know spunky sidekick in Godzilla vs. Gigan. I just loved her character. She was super powerful. She wasn't going to take crap from anybody. She was a
Oh,
butt kicker.
a fashionista?
Mama got. She was a fashionista. Exactly, dude. Everything about her, I was in love with, and I was like, that's someone I want to be. I want to kick butt like her when I grow up.
She's an
And
icon.
Yuriko Hoshi is such a powerful character in Mothra vs. Godzilla. I've always just been so enthralled with her character because, again, I'm going to say it, I'm on brand here. She's another underdog character. She's an up and coming, she wants to be a great photographer and a reporter. And they're always kind of giving her a shit because she's, kind of one step behind and she can't get the good shot. And they're always,
Mhm.
she's the new kid on the block, so everyone's like giving her crap, but she ends
Yeah.
up being the one to deliver the most powerful speech to influence Infinite Island to help out. And that to me is one
Mhm.
of the most that's her elevation right there. She's the heart and soul of that movie, and she's always been the heart and soul of any look at Ghidorah the three-headed monster, the character she plays in that. Again, she's the heart, one of
Yes.
the hearts of that film.
Yeah.
And I always thought she brought a warmth, uh, warmth to that
A
character and to
warmth, a
that era.
humor, like a
Hmm.
humor and just like a determination. Like I really think that her character's so determined all the time and I that was refreshing to see in the show era especially,
Oh,
right?
Ishiro
So,
Honda always knew they always had a keen sense to show women not as they're portrayed on a general level, right? As like the
mhm.
damsel or like the one who needs rescuing.
Yeah.
They were in the forefront. They were in the they were at the very top of leadership in those films.
Yeah.
And you
We
it's really
don't
you don't see that.
we don't celebrate the Godzilla franchise enough for being that progressive with representation at that time for sure. In the
Absolutely.
60s? Oh my god, absolutely.
Oh,
Well,
definitely then.
here is the big question.
Mhm.
How has Godzilla shaped you into the person you are today?
It starts way back, obviously, when I was a kid. When I was going into elementary school, I haven't really told a lot of people this story. Not a lot of people know this. But I had a speaking problem. I knew what I wanted to say, but I couldn't say it. And sometimes you kind of hear it like now. Sometimes I still am a little far behind my thoughts, I think faster than I speak. Sometimes things don't come out the way I intend them to. But
Mhm.
when I was a kid, I had to go to speech therapy courses for about a year because to learn how to talk, because I would just ramble, I would mumble, I couldn't figure out. And a lot of the teachers, even the speech my speech therapist, she told my mom, who was also an educator, she said, your son, I think we're gonna have to admit him into special ed because he's just,
Mhm.
I'm worried for him. He's just not getting it. He's far behind the eight ball. And my mom vehemently refused. She said, "No, my son will be just fine. He will be okay.
Mhm.
I trust he'll be okay." And my mom actually saved me because if she had agreed, I don't know if I would have developed in the same manner
Yeah.
as today, because when you're young, you're impressionable. You're impressionable because of how you're influenced and how you're brought up. If I had been coddled in that way, or if I had been influenced in that way, maybe I wouldn't be here right now. Like
Mhm.
I wouldn't have figured it out myself,
Yeah.
essentially. I wouldn't have helped myself. I would have relied on others. I don't know if I'd be in the same spot today. After I sort of got over that and I started to develop at least to, I don't know, just like function on
Mhm.
a more general level, it sort of became a calling card for me to kind of like never stop like believing and giving up on what you need, what you can, and what you need to do.
Yeah.
I was always one who tried to just push forward and not think about, how I'd be affected by it. And
Mhm.
it's really hard to do that sometimes. You get in your own head a lot. And but Godzilla really helped me in those early years to keep fighting because, and I know it sounds a little cliche, but it's so true, is
Yeah.
I had to keep fighting to survive because I wasn't all there when I was younger. I wasn't. And um, I was bullied very young. I was bullied for being able to not, you know, uh, you see videos of me, there's like home videos of me, like just mumbling and like trying to talk, and you can't understand really what I'm saying. And
Mhm.
it's frustrating me. I'm like, I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
But my mom believed in me and trusted in me, and and so did Godzilla in a sense too. Like that was my other way in to keep my belief, is like keep fighting like Godzilla, keep pushing forward, keep evolving like Godzilla. What has Godzilla done over the years? Godzilla has evolved,
Yeah.
and I did the same thing. I sort of was on the same trajectory in a way, and you know I've evolved in a lot of ways too. Um, but Godzilla was at the forefront of my childhood perspective. Helped break
Um,
me out of my shell, if you will, because I was a very shy kid and
mhm.
I wouldn't talk to a lot of people. When I grew up, when I got older, I was a little better at it, but I was still very shy. And still to this day, if I'm with people I'm not comfortable with, or if I'm just meeting someone for the first time, generally speaking, I won't be the same as I'll be a little, not standoffish, but I'll be a little awkward.
Mhm.
Um, but like, for instance, going to G Fest, being around everyone at I went to G Fest in 2022 for the first time, and then 2023 when the whole crew went. It was an amazing experience because I felt like I was at home. I felt like I was with everyone. I felt comfortable because I was with people that had been talking to online for so long, and I was comfortable with them. So I felt like I already knew them when I met them in real life. But like if I'm meeting someone for the first time, it's definitely different.
Yeah.
But Godzilla has helped me in a lot of ways, and also from not just a personal level of my struggles from my youth to getting out of that, is my creative sense now, like my creative perspective on film, right, on
Mhm.
art, on music. I used to draw. I got into music. I got into film and editing because of my love for Godzilla, and that was, and that in turn, my love for film, my love for movies. So
Yeah.
that all is a huge influence. I mean, most of what I do on social media, my little edits and little videos that I do,
Mhm.
is all stemmed from Godzilla. I mean, during the pandemic, that's all I did to keep myself, sane, and
Yeah.
to keep inspired, creatively, like inspired, because we couldn't do much. I was still working, but I was working from home. I wasn't seeing my coworkers. I wasn't speaking to anybody except for my wife and maybe other people that were around, like on social media or whatever. But we
Mhm.
weren't like able to connect. So my connection was with the social world, the online world, and my connection to that was to do all these edits and like use my what I can creatively in my brain to translate to others and to
Yeah,
myself. That was also, that's a huge part of it too.
absolutely. Thank you for being vulnerable like that. I mean, that was a very heartfelt recollection on like why Godzilla has impacted you so much, and I think like that pushing forward mentality is something that a lot of Godzilla fans can universally connect with. Again, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier, like Godzilla as the escape, Godzilla as the safety. Like there's that safety in the nostalgia. And I think as kids, like we get so much security in that that carries over with us into adulthood too. So, no, thank you for sharing
100%.
that. Thank you for
Yeah, I
sharing
mean,
that.
like I said, I've really never spoken about that to a lot of people. I mean, I remember my wife and I, we were watching, Janelle and I, we were watching one of my old home videos like a couple years ago because my brother sent me a bunch of them that he converted on DVD.
Mhm.
And so we were going through some of them. And there's this one where I'm like 4, maybe. And my dad is like, he's got that big RCA camera, with you put the VHS tape in and then you start recording like straight from there. And it's like a parade or something. And you can hear me in the background. I'm like, oh, daddy, oh, daddy, oh, daddy, oh, daddy, oh, daddy. And he's like, what, John? I was like, I, I forget. But
Mm,
you could tell I was like, I wanted his attention. I wanted something. I wanted to say something, but then I couldn't remember what it was I
mhm,
was wanting to say, and I just like froze. And I was like, oh,
mhm.
I clammed up. And like, my parents were great parents. I was raised very well. My mom and dad are amazing. Um, they
Mm.
they helped me out a lot. They were patient with me. But yeah, like I watched that video and I kind of got sad. I was happy and I was like, oh man, this is nostalgic.
Yeah.
And as I'm watching this video, I got really sad. I was just like, and Jenna was like, what's wrong? I was like, it's kind of bringing me back almost. Like
Yeah.
it's like a trigger back to, you know, when I was
Yeah.
couldn't figure things out. And, it's like, I had to turn it off. I was like, I can't watch this anymore.
Mhm.
But, that's why I love doing these things. Cause like talking with you, someone that I feel comfortable in being vulnerable with. And quite frankly, I feel like a lot of people should be more comfortable being vulnerable because
Yeah.
really it's how we get through anything
Yeah.
is being vulnerable. Even if you're not going to be vulnerable with someone else, be vulnerable with yourself. Be
You
honest and real with
yourself,
yourself.
you owe yourself that much.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And the truth is, like, well, and I think what I thought was thought provoking of what you shared, especially earlier too, is that it took people believing in you for you to then believe in yourself eventually. And,
Yeah.
like in a way, it almost sounds like you were believing that Godzilla believed in you too. And that is what helped you navigate and continue to press on forward, which I think that's really empowering in a way, for sure.
I told my mom one of the best memories I have now to this day is that my mom told me that story, right?
Mhm.
Because that was when I was young, but I really didn't know what all she did for me until I got older and she told me.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit. But I remember at my wedding, you do I was dancing with my mom and I told her that story. And we both started like just welling up and I was
Oh,
like, I couldn't handle myself. I was like, because it was like me as her child, now grown up, getting married, and her seeing that evolution in my life, but me telling her how much I appreciate what she did for me. That was the
mhm.
first time I truly told her. I mean, I told her like in the past, like, but this is the first time I truly said thank you
Yeah.
for, giving me that help and confidence and to help myself, right? To figure it
Yeah.
out myself, but also have help along the way. It was important. And it wasn't just one person. I had help from many teachers, and I'm pretty sure I have ADHD or ADD because there's times where it's really hard for me to focus. I get distracted by like any which thing. Like I'll be talking to Janelle and then all of a sudden I'll get distracted by something else. And she's like, "Are you listening?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm listening. My God, I, I'm, I am sometimes a mess." Like my teachers my teachers would
Oh.
literally tell my mom I was a space cadet. They said he just stares off into outer space during class. He's just up in his own little world. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm
Just on the
probably
moon
thinking,
base.
I said I'm probably on the moon base thinking about Godzilla. That's what I'm probably thinking of. If we're being honest, like that's what I was doing. So yeah, but
Oh
yeah,
my
I'm
goodness. No,
yeah,
see, those are the memories that we need to cherish, especially.
100%.
And there are people like I am like for anyone who ever has a person in their lives who encourages them to love these characters that we fall in love with, like cherish those things because
100%.
there are many people who don't have that. Like I'm grateful that I had family who encouraged my love of Godzilla as well. So,
Yeah, that's
well,
true.
I do have another indulgent question
Okay.
because we're kind of getting
Shoot.
low on time here at the end of the episode, but how far does your love of collecting go? Like you do you
I
collect?
mean,
What?
it goes pretty good. I mean, okay, so like I said, I started collecting truthfully started collecting back in 2014 or recollecting I should say because when we were you and me we had those trendmasters like it was nobody's business. I like the
Oh
whole
yeah.
line essentially whatever I couldn't grab is just cuz they didn't have it, but I had everything. And
And mine
then
got a lot of use.
a lot
I
of
broke some
use.
of mine.
I still had one of my Godzillas until a couple years ago. But actually, where is it?
Oh,
So talk about nostalgia. This guy, and I didn't find this out until years later. I never really knew what kind of like figure, like who made this. Apparently, it's a Korean knockoff figure
oh, yeah.
that they
Mhm.
sold at like flea markets and stores or whatever. All I remember is my grandmother when I was very like probably around 6 years old when I got into Godzilla. She got me this. I've had this ever since. This is one of the few collectibles I've had in my possession since I was young. Is this
Oh my
little
goodness.
Godzilla?
I love
That's
that, and
one of
I'm
them.
obsessed with, like, the Ghidorah back there, like,
Oh,
so good.
oh, the Giga Brain.
Yes.
Yes, this is the only Giga Brain I have. But I was in it when I started collecting the soft vinyl figures back in like 2020, 2019. Nick Sides actually, who at some point you definitely should get on here because Nick Sides is a great human being. He's one of my good friends and friends of the show as well.
Mhm.
And he got me my very first soft vinyl figure, which was this
Oh,
Mechagodzilla 2.
yes.
It's a blue, it's a black base with blue spray, and
That's
that
so
kind of
cool.
started it all for me. And so then I was like, I had this like this black vinyl with blue spray aesthetic I wanted to go for. So I got the Giga Brain, and then of course we have the always classic Toy Graph
Oh,
Diver,
it's
Godzilla
so
Toy
cute.
Graph. I
It's
love his face. Look at his face. He's so
so
cute.
derpy. I
He's
love
so
him.
derpy. And then but then as my collection evolved, I wanted more color. So then I went and got, well, two of my favorites, the Gargantuas up, the M1 Gargantuas. I believe those are M1. Yeah, M1. Thank goodness. And then of course,
Iconic. Forever
iconic.
iconic.
But yeah, like I just have a bunch of different stuff. I mean, this little E.G. Subaraya, I just absolutely love this guy. I cosplayed him for Halloween. There's a picture I have online.
I think I remember seeing that. It was so good. It was so
People thought I
good.
was the everyone that I went to this Halloween party and everyone was like, "Oh, you're Blues Brothers." I'm like, "No, no, I'm not Blues Brothers. I'm E.G. Subaraya." It's like, see,
Get
I
out
had him in
that
my pocket.
trombone and play some blues, Jonathan.
I had him in my pocket. I was like, here. Actually, speaking of that, I was a pretty good trombonist. I was very good. I wasn't good at reading notes, like
Mhm.
reading the music, but I was good at hearing it. So I memorized the positions. So when I saw a position of the note, I knew what tone that was.
We
So,
should start
and
a
I would always
Godzilla
play Godzilla
band.
stuff. A
Let's
Godzilla band
start
would be great. I just have a
oh,
bunch of stuff like, a bunch of Sofubi. And then I have some X Plus. But what I really collect stems back to the nostalgia days,
Oh, the
VHS tapes.
VHS. Yep,
These
I
are the
still
things
have
we grew up
mine.
with, you know? This
Yeah.
one I didn't this one is definitely one that I had. Now these are two, you'll love these. These are two that I still have in my possession to this day. I've never gotten rid of them. I actually brought them to LA with me from back home.
Beautiful.
The by the way, this one I had Megumi Odaka sign for me
Oh my
at
God.
Monsterpalooza. It was like, could you please sign my VHS tape? And she was like, oh my God. To Jonathan Portman. Oh, just
She's so
yes.
sweet.
Miki,
I cried after I met her at G Fest in
right? She's so sweet
2018.
too. She's so sweet.
I cannot believe
So
it's been
sweet.
that long ago.
Oh my
But
God.
no, that
You
is
need to get back.
that is stunning.
The Star
I
Maker. Yep.
I
I
miss
love this
having
one.
that. I have the VHS itself, but not like the cover. And it's again, kid me ruining everything. But that's they got a lot of use. So
I mean, they were played until they were eaten by the VCR.
yeah.
This one
Oh, and
this one's
then
probably one of my
Monster Zero.
favorites.
I loved
The
that
cover
one.
of this, I mean, even though it's kind of funny because they whatever reference materials they got, they have the characters from Rodan here, but it's still
Hmm.
like it is kind of fun to like you have every element and everything looks pretty like spot on, right?
Yeah.
Even you got Glenn down there. I mean, everything about this. I don't know. I
I've
love
not seen
VHS
that.
tapes.
I've not seen that in so long.
Also, I collect vinyl records.
Oh yes.
Mothra versus Godzilla.
Ugh.
You have Invasion of Astro Monster, Destroy
And
All
then Destroy.
Monsters, obviously. World of
And then of
Gargantuas.
course the War of the Gargantuas.
84.
That is so cool.
This is one of my favorite scores from the Heisei era. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Which is
I
funny.
the cover art too on all of these are great.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Speaking of which, I'll get to this in a second. This one's great. Now it's funny. This one, when you open it up, it's supposed to have Destroya roar, but it's broken, so it's like skipping. You hear that?
I can kind of hear it. Yeah.
I opened it the other day to like record a video, and I was like, "Oh, it's broken." I was like, "I didn't even do anything." It just
Oh,
like,
that's tragic.
and then of course, minus one,
-1.
which is
So good.
great. It's again, it's not one of my. It's not like it would be in my top like 10, but it wouldn't be like my top 5 because I
Mhm.
just gravitate more towards my youth and the ones that I grew up watching more.
Yeah.
Maybe more the years go on, that will change and minus one will creep up there. It definitely is deserving of it 1000%. It's a
Oh, for
great
sure.
movie. But what I was gonna say is, whether it's Mondo or Waxwork Records or whoever's doing these records, um, I think it's an absolute crime that the only one that has not been translated for us yet is Biolante. Where is that score?
There is
It's the
always
only one.
weird rights stuff
Yeah.
surrounding that movie, and it drives me bananas. Like, we
Yeah.
need that movie now in every form, music, all of it. Okay,
Yeah. And
gonna get me on a tangent on that because
well,
I feel so passionate about that.
there there is one reason I could think of why maybe that Biolante is not on vinyl in the US, and that could be because of the fact that I'm not sure if people really know this, but I found this out actually after getting the Perfect collections on soundtrack form on CD, the Akira Ifukube 50th anniversary collections of the scores, and in the Heisei era collection, they obviously have the Biolante one. There's a separate disc in there. It's called Soundtrack Ostinato. And so I was like, oh, what's this? I put it in. It's basically an album of recordings of Ifukube's favorite or most prominent tracks that he recorded for an album, like updated them, like newly recorded.
Hmm.
3 of those tracks sound identical to the tracks that appear in Biolante. And I did some digging because I heard it. I was like, wait, this sounds like the Monster Zero March from Biolante. This sounds like the Godzilla theme from Biolante. And this sounds like the Godzilla versus the Army from Biolante. So I did a little digging. When Biollante was being scored, they wanted Akira Ifukube tracks to make, because they wanted, 84 didn't really do the amount of money at the box office that they initially thought they would be getting from
Hmm.
it. It didn't do gangbusters basically. They thought it was going to be this huge thing.
Hmm.
And so they were like, let's bring more familiarity back. Let's try to bring Akira Ifukube back. He again declined, which respectfully he did. And then behind his back, essentially, they took some tracks of like the Godzilla theme and whatnot and the Monster Zero March, and they took them from that ostinato score because they owned the rights to that. And they
Oh,
put them in the movie.
shady.
They put them in the movie. So those tracks, they are not newly recorded tracks translated by Sugiyama. They are actually stripped from soundtrack ostinato that are actually Akira Ifukube's that he recorded and composed and rearranged himself. And that's when his daughter, when they came around to doing the Ghidra, King Ghidra, she was like, you might as well just say yes and go back because they're just
Just
gonna keep taking the
using the
music. So
stuff
you might as
that's
well
in the
just come back.
catalog.
He's like,
Yeah.
okay, I give in. I'll come back. And it was good for the fans and good for us and good for me because I love his work. But
I never knew that. See, this is
yeah,
another reason I do the show. I learn things I never knew before.
I'm not saying it's like a totally negative thing. Like it is
Well,
kind of a shady
no.
deal, but like they did own the rights to it. But
It's
also
probably a common practice, or it
100%. I mean,
was.
this happens all the time. Like company, distributors and movie companies in America do the same thing. Like they all do the same thing. They just rip from the libraries whenever they can. Sometimes, if
Mhm.
it's practical. I mean, Godzilla versus Gigan did the same thing. Akira Ifukube declined to come back for that, and so they basically took a best of, and they cobbled it together, and they
And
to
adapted
their
it.
they did it pretty well. But
Oh my
um,
goodness.
yeah,
Jonathan,
more
we have covered so much ground in
so
the
a lot of
span, like
stuff.
in this episode, and I love it. I do have one final question for you.
Yes,
Do you have any advice for Godzilla fans who may be new to the franchise?
I'd say this: go in with an open mind and go in with what interests you. Do
Mhm.
not go in based on necessarily what anyone else tells you, because yes, that's a good barometer. Having influence from somebody else may be a good starting block. Like it might be a good little outline. Like, okay, I'll note this down and maybe I'll see if it interests me. But if something like the Monsterverse or the Showa era or the Heisei or the
Mhm.
Millennium, if any of those interests you first, if that attracts you, seek that out
Yeah.
because then you can always go back
Yep.
and see what inspired it. I'm not going to sit here and be one of those people that and that's fine. Like people can totally suggest this. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm not going to be the one to say you should go back and watch the original 1954 Godzilla first, or that you should go and watch Destroy All Monsters, or Mothra vs. Godzilla,
Mhm.
or 84, or Destroya, or 2000, or whatever. I'm not going to be the one to say that. If you
Yeah.
see Godzilla 98 and you say, I'm curious about that one first, then by all means,
No
go
shame
watch it.
here.
No shame, go watch it.
Yeah.
Godzilla is what Godzilla is to you, not what Godzilla means to everybody. Like, we all love Godzilla, but go with what interests you. When my nephew was like 10 years old, I could have shown him any Godzilla movie on the planet. I could have shown him what I grew up with watching. But what did we watch first? I showed him 2014
Mhm.
because I thought that that would be one that he would be most intrigued by, more modern era Godzilla, and he did. He was like really enthralled with it, and but he never really like got the Godzilla itch, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Yeah.
But I know people that have gotten into the MonsterVerse first, or have gotten into the Heisei era first, and have gone back and just love the Showa era as equally for what they are. So I'd say this is a long-winded answer, and I know I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit, but
Oh, no, you're good.
just go with what interests you first. Don't necessarily listen to the crowds,
And
right?
any entry point matters.
Any
Like
entry point
I
matters,
feel like people
100%.
I've talked to so many people who have said that their first entry point to Godzilla was Godzilla 98, and I'm like, "That's fine." Like,
Yeah,
that is totally okay, but they had been shamed about it before, and I'm like, just we're all loving the same character here, so let's just you know,
100%.
experience it together, right?
Yeah, and
So,
like as far be it for who am I as an individual to tell
mhm,
someone else they're wrong for liking or loving something? Like it doesn't
yeah,
make any. I okay, love what you love. I'm not going to get in the way of that, and I certainly hope no one else would. I would say that just and on to bank off of that point, just be yourself.
yeah, that's all you
In
can
that
do.
sense, be yourself. Don't listen to anyone, but if you have an intuition about something, go with that.
Jonathan, where can people find you? Where can people find you on the interwebs? Share.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm in the Collect All Monsters Monster Collectors Facebook group. You can find me there as well as many other collectors, as well as Donny. It's a great group. It's a welcoming group. We welcome everyone. Everything gets shared in there. I'm on Instagram at you can see probably down below there
Mm.
JP784. I do help to run the Collect All Monsters TV Instagram account as well. And every once in a while, you can come watch us on our monthly live stream on Collect All Monsters on our YouTube channel. It's every second Saturday of the month, and we have a really cool discussion just basically talking about all these things that we love about collecting and Godzilla and Ultraman and you name it. We're talking about it. And I produce on there. Sometimes I come on as a guest host if I'm pinch hitting for someone else.
Mhm.
So yeah, you can find me in all those places. I'm around.
I will have all of those links in the description section of this video, everyone, so you can go check those out. And please go give our friends a follow over there too. So, Jonathan, this has been a wonderful conversation. I couldn't think of a better way to ring in a new season of this show. So,
Well,
thank you for being here with me and for sharing your history and your story. It means a lot.
Donnie, it's been a real pleasure to be here and to be with everyone here. I'm really honored to be on this show. What you've been doing with Growing Up with Godzilla, fostering this community of acceptance and vulnerability and community is really important. And I really hope you continue it. And I hope this show potentially, not potentially, and it has the potential and will grow to be like, you're gonna go 10 years plus. Like this has staying power, my friend.
Well, thank
And
you.
you are a huge part of that. And you fostered this great experience. And anyone that can come on here and share their stories. I mean, this is what it's all about. And you're at the forefront of it. So thank you for all that you do, man.
Almost
Really.
made me cry. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to me. 10 years, I don't know about 10 years, we'll see.
However long you want to do it,
But
let's put it that way.
I'm feeling pretty optimistic about it. So thank you for saying that though. It really means a lot to me. So
We
Godzilla
love you.
fans, I love you too. Godzilla fans, do not forget that Growing Up with Godzilla premieres on the first and third Sunday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can stream the episodes on different streaming services. Behold the Queen before you. And of course, don't forget to click like, subscribe, all of those small things that help this show continue its trajectory. And most importantly, Godzilla fans, do not forget to keep standing tall. Have a good rest of your night. Bye.
Love you.